Hi, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the fifth edition of the ERMI webinar series. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping matters to deal with. This webinar is being recorded and you can leave questions anytime during the webinar in the questions box. In case the webinar ends abruptly due to any technical glitch, please just join back using the registration link. And an e-certificate will be provided at the end only to those who attend the entire webinar. So on that note, a little bit of context about today's session. So the last several months of the ERMI webinar series, we've been looking at different aspects of research management, how research managers can facilitate research. So the topic of discussion today is actually on managing funded programs. As a PI, you would have written a grant, the grant funded, and that's when a lot of work begins, both in terms of getting the research program off the ground and in working with the administration to ensure funds utilization and all of the different steps that are needed for actually managing your project. So today we're actually going to look at the management of funded programs through the eyes of research managers. So we have two colleagues here who were with us last time as well. Pleasure to welcome Joyita Sarkar from IIT Bombay and Vandana Gambhir, who will be joining us shortly. So Joyita and Vandana work at research offices at their respective institutions, and they're going to give their perspective on how a research office can facilitate post-award grant management. It's a pleasure also to welcome Kamal Gulati from AIMS. Kamal is a project management consultant and he coordinates the activities of a large DBT funded program. So Kamal is going to share with us his perspective of what it takes to keep a program like that going, coordinated through the activities of a project manager. So on that note, Joyita, and Vandana's here as well. Welcome to the webinar, Vandana. So on that note, Joyita, over to you. Please do share your insights on how the IRCC office at IIT Bombay helps to manage research projects. Over to you, Joyita.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Savita. And thank you everyone for joining in. So I would like to thank India Alliance DBT Welcome, first of all, for starting such a wonderful program for the research management community to come together. I think we need more of such interactions, and with Savita's help, hopefully we should be seeing more and more of each other and talking to each other a lot more to build a healthy ecosystem in India as well. So I'll quickly move to today's topic of managing funded programs. I will quickly go through the process that we follow here at IIT Bombay, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So the first aspect of fund management is you have to understand that funds can come in many different ways. I've listed a few here. First is what we call as grant and aid. These are usually, the research grants that we receive from mostly government agencies. They are meant for research, for core research, and they are long duration kind of research projects which do not have much of a service component. It is a core research and development activity. Secondly, we also do technical services, like we provide consultancy and R&D services to industries, which come with their own IP understanding, and there's a separate taxation procedure, there's applicability of GST, etc. Third is corporate social responsibility. I think anybody who manages funded programs nowadays is aware of this major component of corporate social responsibility through which many industries sponsor research nowadays. So it has an ATG requirement, and it also has to be handled separately. There's a separate accounting procedure that also one needs to keep in mind while handling CSR projects. Of course, there's endowment or donation. In IIT Bombay, basically these endowment donation funds are for setting up research labs, centers of excellence, chair professorships, scholarships, fellowships for students to pursue R&D projects. They have their own, of course, management processes and norms that one needs to follow. Finally, we come to a grant called internal grants. This is a grant provided to faculty members from Dean R&D's office in order to facilitate research. I'll just give you a few examples. There is something called a seed grant that we give to new faculty members to initiate or to start with their lab, to get some basic requirements in place, some equipment or consumables, or if you want to, to get started, so to say. We also support one TA for such a faculty. We allow the faculty to take a PhD student under his guidance, and the sponsorship, the fellowship of the TAP is completely supported by IRCC. There are many other programs. We support patent cost, we support publication cost, there is international travel cost. So all those internal grants are also have to be managed, and they are all managed by Dean R&D's office, except for corporate social responsibility and endowment and donations. These are handled by Office of Dean ACR, Alumni and Corporate Relations. So we'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So whatever project it is, whether it is coming through grant in aid as a consultancy service or endowment, these are the few steps, basic steps that every project has to follow. First, you have to find funding. You have to develop a proposal. All this has to happen before you get the project. Once the project is awarded to you, you have to kind of set up the project. You have to start with procurement. You have to recruit project staff, because unlike the industries, academic institutes will employ staff only after getting a project. We do not have a pool of staff with us who can be assigned from one project to the other. So the recruitment process is undertaken. So project related travel, publication, account management, of course, setting up of individual project code on UC, SOEs, and managing all the funds, invoice, bills. IPR management definitely is a big part. And finally, stakeholder management, keeping all the parties informed and on the same page about the progress of the project. So in this entire life cycle, if you see, Dean R&D's office, other than doing the technical part of the project, of actually doing the research, rest of the aspects are managed by Dean R&D's office in coordination with various units. Maybe it could be the purchase, it could be the Dean ACR's office, it could be with various account management teams. We have to finalize the contracts, we have to negotiate about IPR. All that aspect has to be taken up, is taken up by Dean R&D's office here. Of course, there is also a requirement of research ethics and compliance. So we have an institute ethics committee for all the health and biomedical related studies. So that approval, that clearance, that activity also is supported completely by Dean R&D's office. So go to the next slide. So this is how Dean R&D's office, Industrial Research and Consultancy Center, this looks like. We have various verticals which support various aspects of the project. The technical section handles the contracts, the IP management part, and the statutory clearances. There is an accounts section, which is all important, which manages the movement of funds, gives the UCs, SOEs, does all bank reconciliations, and gives reports on time so that we get the next cache of funds. So, and finally, admin. We have to recruit project staff, like I said. Once the project is awarded to us, we have to start with project staff recruitment. Sometimes they are eligible for accommodation. We have to work on that. There is a fellowship support. There is internship. A lot of those activities are handled by administration. And all these activities at IRCC are tied together by our software. We have an internal software, which we call as Drona. It's an internal server, which allows the faculty in charge to coordinate with all these sections seamlessly. He can talk to accounts, he can talk to admin, he can talk to technical section. Everything is online, all the processes are automated. So there is hardly any paperwork when it comes to managing R&D projects at IIT Bombay. So we'll go to the next slide. I'll just talk a little bit more about this internal server of ours. This is how it looks like. This is the home page. So you have an LDAP, that is a login and password through which one can enter. But before you log in also, we have various tabs, if you can see, faculty, projects, students, projects. So all the norms are already mentioned there. A faculty, before taking up any kind of project, or a project staff before starting any kind of project, can go through all the terms and conditions that they are supposed to abide by, whatever are the norms of the institute they have put up, and they have to have a very clear understanding of what they are expected to do when they undertake an R&D or a consultancy project. This is just a snapshot. I mean, on the left-hand side, if you see, there are lots of tabs. When one scrolls down, there is a provision for submission to ethics committee. There are agreement templates. There are various research activities that are listed that the institute carries out. So all the information about R&D activities at IIT Bombay can be got from here. So all this information is available right in the beginning before logging in. I'll also take, maybe we go to the next slide. Yeah, so I just want to show, once you log in, if you look at the tab on the left, you see all these tabs open up to the faculty to provide details of the faculty can include, actually he or she has to upload his project in consultancy mode or sponsored project mode. It goes through an approval cycle from the HOD to the dean to accounts, which is mandatory for any project to start. Then you have project staff recruitment, that entire process. The request has to be raised by the faculty in charge through Drona. It will go to the accounts will check if funds are available, etc., etc. So all that is also automated. Similarly, project accommodation, IP submission. So even IDF submission, one has to start from Drona. The PI has to submit the IDF, and all the subsequent steps are managed on Drona. Agreements need to be uploaded on Drona. They go through a legal review. Response from the faculty, response from legal consultant, or to the faculty, to legal consultant, everything is mapped. So we do not entertain any other way of handling MOUs or projects other than what is outlined on Drona. The only difference is when it comes to absolute accounting, the movement of bills and invoices, that is done on SAP, but we have a SAP system. But SAP is integrated with Drona such that faculty and technical staff and the deans, all of us have view access, and at any point of time we can understand what is the fund status, what is the project status of any given project, who are the faculty involved, who are the PIs involved, co-PIs involved, what is the internal revenue sharing method. Everything is available to all the people concerned. We also have RIFC, so this is research infrastructure and facility. So everything that R&D office does is mapped through Drona. It is an entirely automated process. We started this way back in 2002. I think, yeah, it was developed by a few software engineers from in IRCC, and since then it has been updated and upgraded based on the requirements and suggestions of the institute researchers. So this is basically, I just wanted to tell you this is the process that we follow at IIT Bombay, and I mean this is one mechanism, and that's all actually. So after this, we can take up the discussion based on whatever queries that you may have. So Savita, that's over to you.
Thank you so much, Joyita. That was absolutely fantastic. And I must say that Drona seems like an incredible system, and actually there aren't very many institutions in India who have systems like this. So it's incredibly valuable for you to share that. On that note, I'll request Kamal to step in next and talk to us about his adventures as a project manager. Over to you, Kamal. Kamal, are you on mute?
Yeah, now it's okay. Yeah. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Savita and IRMI for giving me this opportunity to speak on this webinar. It's actually a very good exercise from the point of view of the research managers across the country. They should come on the same page and they should learn from each other's experience as well as mistakes. So I think IRMI gives a very good platform to everyone to learn from each other. And I was very happy to see the presentation by Joyita. They have a very robust system like Drona, which is very much required in big institutions, and all those institutions which have a research component in their university or in institute. So coming to my slide, I am working as a project management consultant in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, and I am employed in a Department of Biotechnology funded research project, which is primarily a cohort study, a community-based study. I joined the study in 2014 as a program manager, and till January 2016, I was holding that position, and I was responsible for the management of the urban component. So this study has actually three sides. One is urban component, that is AIIMS New Delhi, and the other one is rural component, that is another satellite center of AIIMS in Ballabgarh. So we are recruiting people from New Delhi as well as from the rural component, that is in Haryana. We have third site, that is National Brain Research Center Manesar, which is primarily responsible for imaging analysis because we have an MRI component also. So brief about the study, it's an international collaborative project with Erasmus Medical Center, the Netherlands. The project is funded by Department of Biotechnology, approved for 8 years as of now. Till 2022, we have got approval of sanction of funds to the tune of rupees 32 crores approximately. We have three sites, as I told you. One is AIIMS Delhi, Rural Center in Ballabgarh, and the National Brain Research Center Manesar. The study is a multi-investigators project from different specialties of medicine like neurology, cardiology, biochemistry, dental, gynecology, and all. So there are overall 21 investigators. It's a team of 21 investigators, which is led by the principal investigator in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. We currently employ about 50, precisely 46 staff in this project, and almost 50% distribution at the urban and rural sites. The sample size which is planned in the study is approximately 15,000 people, 7,500 from urban side, that is in Delhi, and 7,500 from the rural component. And as on date, we have recruited almost 11,000 people who have undergone for the field data collection as well as the medical assessments in our site at AIIMS New Delhi and one in the Ballabgarh Center. MRI also, we have done 2,600 plus MRIs at the urban component. We could not do it at rural because we don't have a dedicated MRI machine there in the rural center. So we could not do the MRI in the rural center. Next slide, please. So given a broad structure of the team which the project has, it is, if you see the left panel, it shows that it is led by a principal investigator and then comes the investigators. And we have given the responsibilities to the investigators to look after the urban component, one investigator in charge for the rural component, and one for the data management. Then comes my role as consultant project management, and I am supported by a team of almost 45 people, right from program managers, senior research officers, that includes doctors with different specializations, and then other research staff like we have research fellows, PhD students, research assistants, dietitians, psychologists, and statisticians. If you see the right panel on the top, the study is guided by our Dutch collaborators from Erasmus Medical Center. And we also have an international advisory committee, which includes the principal investigators of similar cohorts from US and other countries, European countries like Framingham Heart Study. We also have one working committee which looks after, it's a committee of investigators, like a team of investigators which looks after the day-to-day working of the project. And we have events committee meeting which ascertains the neurological and the cardiological events, which is part of the protocol. Next, please. Yeah. So the overall goal of the project is to establish a large cohort of adults and elderly in the general population as a resource for epidemiological studies of health and aging with a special focus on neuroscience, which is stroke as well as cognitive decline. And I must tell you, it's the first of its kind study in India. And the recruitment and the assessments in the study includes, the first step is to collect field data collection in the community. Our social workers goes house to house, they tell people about the study, they take their consent, and then they collect their field data. And then we book an appointment to bring them at the medical site in the AIIMS center or in the rural center. And then we do the blood collection, then we isolate their DNA. We have a dedicated lab for that, ECG, echocardiography, carotid Doppler. We take the dietary history, physical examination, dental assessment, and most importantly, psychological assessments. And Then those who consent for MRI, we request them to go for the MRI. Next, please. Next. Yeah. So since it's a large project and it is public funded project, we hope that it will be very beneficial to the individuals like the aging population, those who are 50 plus, to early predict their risk factors as well as to advise them about some prevention with respect to paralysis or stroke or in dementia or cognitive decline. It will also be beneficial to the society to raise awareness about the risk factors, and from time to time we organize many awareness programs in the community about the different aspects of the health, especially for the aging population. It gives motivation to others to participate, and we are very sure that it will it will be very effective. It will contribute significantly to the research infrastructure at AIIMS as well as the knowledge bank about the stroke and cognitive decline in the aging population, specific to the Indian healthcare scenario. Next, please. Yeah. So coming to the role of project management in such large studies, it is very important because if you see in an institute like AIIMS, where uh, the research is one of the missions of the AIIMS, other than patient care and teaching, it is very important for the doctors here to conduct research and to add some value to the existing knowledge database. So support of project management is very important because doctors are generally busy with their day-to-day patient care services, like they have their OPDs, they have their OTs, and they get very little time to devote for the research. But yeah, people work a lot of time, extra hours to put their research credentials or to strengthen their research credentials. So that is why a support system from the project management point of view is very important. And a manager is primarily responsible for coordination of the overall project activities, building a good team to manage the finances and grants, and to recruit people and take care of the staff matters, to procure machinery and equipment and consumables, and whatever regulatory approvals are required. Like in our case, we have taken approval from the ethics committee, Health Minister Screening Committee if it is a clinical trial, and the DCGI approval and PNDT approval as it is applicable in our case because we are having an echocardiography machine and the carotid Doppler machine. So I think that project management role is very, very critical in the effective problem solving and to look after the day-to-day management of the study, where the PIs are not required to devote their precious time about the small matters or not so important matters which can be sorted out at a little lower level. So I think project management is very important for providing critical assistance to the principal investigators. Next, please. Yeah. So as Joyita said, that it is very important to manage all the stakeholders, and communication is very important. And for this matter, I think a research manager has a key challenge to manage all stakeholders and keep everybody informed as well as on board. See, at institute level, we have our AIIMS research section, ethics committee, engineering department, IT department, like Department of Biotechnology is another stakeholder, and we have got some partial funding from Department of Health Research also. Community, it is very important because ours is the community-based project, and we have approached almost 15,000 people and recruited 11,000 people. So they have their certain expectations from the project or from the institute that why being a healthy person, they should get involved in a research project. Why should they come for assessment? Why should they give their own blood? You know, why should they invest their almost 24 hours for going through field data collection at their home and then coming to medical site and going through all investigations? And international partners, like we have our Dutch collaborators in Erasmus and the International Advisory Committee. And since it's a study which is similarly on the lines of Framingham Art Study, so we get a lot of queries, we get a lot of communication from all our international partners or those who have interest for collaboration and all that, being this the first of its kind study in India. So managing all the stakeholders and the government agencies like ministry, the media, NGOs, and the suppliers and other stakeholders. It is very important, and it's a key challenge for a research manager to manage all these stakeholders and keep everybody informed as well as on board, so that everybody is, you know, it's at the same page and it brings it carries a good image of the study in the eyes of all the stakeholders. So that is very important. Next, please. Yeah. So coming to grant and financial management, since it's a public funded project and it is being run by AIIMS, which is again a public funded institute of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, we are governed by the government guidelines, and since it's a government guidelines are generally rigid in nature, so there is not much scope for the flexibility, and DBT releases the fund in the fixed heads like manpower for the staff hiring, machinery and equipment procurement, and consumables for the reagents, etc. Travel both for international as well as domestic, and a little contingency amount to manage day-to-day expenses, as well as the overhead amount which is charged by the institute research section because they provide the administrative as well as financial support to the project. Now, the challenge for the research manager is that each procurement is governed by general financial rules, that is called GFR, and we are bound to procure first from the government e-marketplace portal, that is GEM portal, or follow the tender procedure. So all these rules sometimes make the procurement very slow. It takes a lot of time, sometimes tender, then re-tendering and all that. And in my project, if I say that it took us almost like 1.5 years just to procure items and put them in place, installation and etc. Following the government guidelines, which I believe would have been very easier in some other institute which is not so, which have a little flexibility in procurement matters. For manpower hiring, we are bound by the guidelines of the Indian Council of Medical Research, Department of Biotechnology, or DST about essential qualifications, experience, age limit, and the pay to the staff. And these guidelines are also required to be followed like in toto, so that, and there's not there's actually no flexibility if I want to hire a good person with a little more salary, or if I want to hire a person with a little qualification, less qualification, and with lower salary, that is not possible. So it has to be fit in the provided guideline framework, and then only we can do the manpower hiring. Reappropriation of funds is very difficult because once we have given our budget to the funding agency and we have got the funds in the fixed heads, and if you want to make any reappropriation, if I have saved money in consumables and I want to buy some equipment from that, it is not very easy. We have to go back again to the funding agency and take their approval for reappropriation, which is again a time-consuming effort. And approval of funding agency is mandatory for almost all matters in the project. So it is quite a tiring task for a research manager to manage the financial as well as the grant in a public funded institute, and if you are getting funds from a ministry like science and technology. Thank you. Next, please. Sorry. Yeah, for this project, we have taken approval from the Institutional Ethics Committee. We have AIIMS Ethics Committee as well as PNDT approval for use of echocardiography and carotid Doppler machines. Next, please. Yeah, the uniqueness of this project is that we are collecting data in the field, being it a community-based study, as well as we have a assessment site in AIIMS as well as in Ballabgarh CRHSP Center. And since I have been involved in study from since beginning 2012 onwards, I was sent to the Rotterdam Cohort Study Center to see their processes, to see their facilities, and to come back and establish the similar facilities in the AIIMS. And now I am also responsible for the maintenance as well as management of this assessment site. So, so if you see, there are two components. One is the project management, and the second is the facility management. So it's sort of a dual role for a research manager to manage both the things, because your facilities should be intact, because people will be coming like 12 per day. They will be coming. Then we will be doing the blood collection. We have put a small lab here. Then we have project vehicles which provide doorstep pickup and drop to our participants. We brief them on arrival, and then we do all the medical assessments and provide them consultations. And most importantly, if we find anybody has some symptoms or any disease, or they want any consultation in the AIIMS outpatient department, so they also request us to arrange for that. So it's a sort of a moral responsibility, though it is not a part of the project. People ask us to arrange their appointments sometimes in orthopedics and in eye hospital or in cancer, and we also arrange their OPD consultation. And as of now, we have arranged almost more than 1500 consultations in the institute, which is again a very tiring task. Then they expect us to provide their test reports at their doorstep, and further, if they want to consult that, they request us to arrange for similar consultation. So managing expectations of the participant is also another important challenge for a research manager. And then we do every 6 monthly, we do their telephonic follow-up, which is part of our project protocol, that how they are doing, whether they got some admission in some other hospital, whether they have consulted any doctor, whether they have developed any disease, or whether they have fallen down or something like that. So that is also part of the project, that every 6 monthly we do their telephonic follow-up, and every 4 years, after 4 years, they have to visit our assessment center again and undergo the same medical assessments for the project purposes. Though we have not started our such periodic follow-up because of COVID, it got delayed. It was due in sometimes in February, but now it is being delayed because of COVID. People are not willing to come to a hospital environment in AIIMS. Next, please. Yeah, for such a large study, as I told you, that it is very important to manage all stakeholders. So I'm required to compile all the information and keep it up to date in consultation with my colleagues in data management and the research officers. So that whenever sometimes we get an email from the funding agency that we have to submit a report to XYZ office, and then you please send us the summary of the report. So within 24 hours. So we are always on the toes, and we are up to date to provide such information to our funding agency or to any other stakeholder or government agency where we are required to submit on time. We also submit the annual progress report to funding agency, which shows the progress made in the last financial year, which is a regular exercise, and periodical reports to our institutional ethics committee. Publication in the scientific journal is part of the aims or the researchers, so that is a routine thing, and that is one very much evidence-based research output which spreads the knowledge across the medical fraternity. We also organize national workshops which are attended by people from across the country. We also invite people to deliver their lectures and all that. And now we have recently started a series of webinars exclusively for our cohort study participants, those who have joined the study, so that keep them up to date about the COVID problems, or if they want to have any other information, then we share through webinars and press releases. We also publish in their local magazines so that they are engaged with the project and their queries are addressed. And community periodicals and programs are quite often these days happening because of this virtual thing. Next, please. Yeah, it's just a snapshot about our community awareness program, and if you see that people are so curious to raise their hands and to ask about their queries, and our doctors are addressing their queries. So these are like a common routine exercise, and we almost organize, before COVID, we used to organize almost 3 to 4 such programs in a year on different topics, where we used to invite our participants and address their queries and concerns about their aging health and possible solutions to them. Next. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Kamal, for that incredible tour of all the work that you do managing the DBT program. And so on that note, now we'll switch back to looking at how a research office can facilitate post-award management. We have Vandana, who's going to talk to us about her work portfolio at the radio office at IISER Pune. Over to you, Vandana.
Thanks, Savita. I'll just take a minute to share my slide.
We can see your slide, Vandana.
Yeah. Perfect, great. Thank you, Savita, and thank you, India Alliance, for giving this platform to share our learning with all the participants who have taken out time today to listen to this talk. So the last 2 talks which we have listened nicely covered about IIT Bombay, a big institute, how they manage across different programs, and also the platform Drona, which they had, which was very interesting for me to see. And talk from Kamal, who spoke about the extended program over there, which involves a lot of stakeholders and quite a lot of complexity. So I will here talk about very simple things. Just want to change the mood here. So, being a research scientist myself, I believe that all the scientists, they have the management skills in them. Because when they write a project, it requires a prior planning. It involves some strategy. Based on that strategy, some networking, some collaborations have to be done. And then getting a project proposal, executing the project proposal vis-a-vis the budgeting which is proposed, versus if any alterations required, as Kamal said, it involves going back to the funding agency, which may not be taken in a very welcoming spirit. And then is where launching the project, launching the success of the project, and tracking the project throughout the years. So roughly is where a scientist does it. But now think about a scenario where a research scientist becomes a very senior research scientist and has 8 or 10 projects to execute across all the partners. So that is where having a person or a set of person who has the expertise to manage some aspects of the grant is very useful. And IISER Pune is no exception. Even though we have basic departments, basic science departments, over the years we have added few departments like earth and climate sciences, humanities and social sciences, which have very different need because they involve many a times field research. And then there are centers of excellence which are set up whereby there's a lot of cross science which is coming up. It will involve a lot of interaction between the basic and the center of excellence which is required. So in order to achieve the project goal, probably in a timeline manner, the grant manager or the team which is supporting the grant has to do one very important thing, that is called avoiding the distraction. Now, how to avoid the distraction is where I would like to share with all of you a small story. It's a $5 challenge. This is a story which was shared by Professor Steele to her management students. She gave this challenge to her students and said that in this challenge, I'm going to give all of you $5. In this $5, you can use it as an investment. Then you have to earn some money from this. Whosoever will earn maximum in a time window of 2 hours will be the winner. And what she said was, each of you, or if you form teams or individually, you will have to make a presentation, and the time of presentation would be 2 minutes. So quickly after listening to the professor, some of the students, they thought that $5, let us focus on that. What can we invest this $5 in? So one group of students thought that let us do car washing, get a bucket, water, soap, a sponge, and let's do car cleaning. So the students who did this did not win. Another group thought that let us start making lemonade and selling it, because they thought that they have to focus on $5. Again, this group also did not win. And then the third group of students, they thought that this $5 looks like to us as a distraction. Let us forget about $5. Let us focus on 2 hours. So what they thought was, in 2 hours, that let us earn some money. And the strategy what they employed was, they made dinner reservation in the restaurants around the Stanford for corporates who would like to have dinner with their employees or with their clients. So this group, which focused on something else, focused on 2 hours, also did not win. The group which won the challenge by earning $650 was the one who thought that the $5 and 2 hours are distractions. We should focus on how we can earn 2 minutes. So what they did was they sold this 2 minute time to a company who wanted to talk to the Stanford students and was interested to hire them. So if we see in our role also as grants manager, program manager, then we see that many a times is where multiple things will come in front of us. And those are the situations in which we will face a lot of distractions. And a lot of time is where we will be having a cluttered office with multiple paper just sitting on the table. Many a time it has a lot of piles in it. And all this distraction actually takes away the focus of timely executing what is required to us to do. And why I wanted to share this story with you is because having an experience of handling 250 projects, which includes all kind of projects, which Joyita said. So IISER Pune is still a young institute. It's a growing institute. So the grants office, it tackles with all industry, government funded consultancy project, endowments project if they are meant for research, and international projects in terms of post-award management. So one can imagine that keeping the focus and avoiding the distraction is very much important, because when we look at the steps involved in the post-award, they are a lot many compared to the pre-award. Because in the pre-award, there is only two-way interaction. The interaction is between the party which is interested in writing the project and the party which is interested in funding. The grants management team or the person will provide support in the writing of the proposal, which is basically the budgetary part, in taking the statutory approval. Whereas when we come across the post-award management, right from the very beginning, many times is where the project investigator is not sure what is the date of start of the project, and accordingly there is no clarity on date of end of the project. It involves multiple steps. I will not reiterate what it has already been shared by Joyita, but what I would like to share here is a message that a knowledge of general financial rules is very important for a person handling the grants portfolio, and also to understand in terms of what the institute can do, whereby they can change some things in their policy. So here I want to share a story. So we found that the JRFs, Junior Research Fellows, they are sanctioned on projects, but many a times it is very difficult to find them to work on a project. If one is successful to find them one is successful to find one, then the problem of attrition comes, because project student is more interested to get registered for a PhD. So thereby we felt that we should do something as an institute for it. And at that time when we felt, we also saw that there is a huge discrepancy in the salary between a project assistant and a JRF. So this I am talking 2-3 years back, when project assistant salary was 12,000 and JRF salary was 25,000. So this difference of amount was also a good reason for anybody to leave the project. So that is where our institute made its own policy, whereby if a PI requests for hiring a project assistant so as to meet the goals of the project, we do allow it, and we ask the PI to inform the funding agency about it. So these are some of the measures, which an institute can also take. A lot of time it is the budget and financial management is very, very crucial in terms of how this is viewed, how these reports are viewed at funding body, and a lot of time it goes back and forth, which delays the securing of next installments. And the last is all the reports. So I'm leaving this slide particularly for all the viewers to view that post-award management, it is quite complex. It involves interactions at multiple stakeholders. If you belong to a small institute, there will be a very small team. If you belong to a medium-sized institute, there will be a bigger group. And if you belong to a very large institute, then of course systems like Drona would be very, very useful. So this is what we have the layout for the grants administration and management at IISER Pune. I would like you all to focus on the right hand side part of it. So whereby me as a grants manager, I take care of the expenditure on the project is as per the budgeting. If there is any special request which is made, so that there is proper information or approvals, they are sought from the funding body. The grants office also manage the budget, the expenditure report. So there is a team of people based on the projects which we have. So overall, the grants office role in post-award management, which we have set forth by interacting with all the stakeholders, which could be the internal stakeholders in IISER Pune, or it could be the external stakeholders like industry or funding body, is to get more and more collaboration, more and more research to meet the goals which are set up, to show the proper utilization of the funds, and to follow up for the receipt of the next installment or the consecutive installments. And the goal is that all the reports which are required, they go along with the expenditure report. So I would like to end with this slide, whereby I'm trying to show that the post-award management, whether it is taking place in a funding body or in an institute, or one is leading a big project like Manish is leading at AIMS, is where the post-award management would remain roughly the same. Whether you work in a funding body, the interactions also what you will have also will be most or like similar. It's only the subjects, right, what you are working with. If it's in a very big project, that is where the last one, it makes quite a complex role. So this is where I would like to end. Thank you. Savita, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vandana. So unfortunately, Joyika had to leave because she had another commitment, but we can sort of start exploring some of the questions. Just a reminder to the audience to keep typing your questions in the questions box. So actually, I'd just like to ask Vandana a question. I know you just finished speaking, but you work with so many faculty. What are the typical kind of questions they have, where your office can help them arrive at the right decisions in terms of managing their funds, utilizing their funds?
Right. So, see, I work in a very delicate zone whereby I cannot take lot of, the institute cannot give lot of advances, because if the advances are not recovered from the funding body in a timely manner, and there's a huge debt, then is where the new faculty who are joining, because this all advances need to be given by the institute, which has its own limited budget. So, so one question which I almost every day listen from the faculty is the grants office and we, because we from IISER Pune, we submit both reports together to funding body, the progress report and financial report. So they say that we as an institute have complied with the funding body. Why is it the funding body not sending money? So, so that is a question which they ask me every time, and that is my I have to wear the goggles and see, because the reports I give to them, they have to upload on the portal, and sometimes I feel that there is a problem in uploading on the portal. So that is one question. And then is where the funding bodies are also, when they are accessing the portal, they slowly, the Indian funding agencies are evolving to use of these online portals. So there is a time lag difference. So the delay in fund is one. The other which question which I encounter from new faculty who are writing projects is where they ask me about the manpower policies. And in terms of when we discuss their project, their requirements, then is whereby I try to suggest them that hire this manpower instead of this manpower, so that we don't have to go to funding agency again. Avoid taking that. And then another set of questions which I get from funding agencies when an industry approach them. So that time is where you cannot talk to industry in a very open environment. So you need to have some agreements in place, like non-disclosure agreements, and then you follow it up. So I can keep talking, but these are the things which I usually encounter.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vandana. So, Kamal, I have a question for you. I mean, you must by now be extremely familiar with the DBT policies for all of the different aspects of the grant. Of course, the AIMS policies as well. And you're the sort of point person within the project team who helps to interpret those policies for all of the administrative teams that you work with, whether that's HR or finance or procurement. Could you just share maybe some stories about that or some views on that? This sort of central person and, having to interpret the sort of policies on both sides.
Yeah, as I told you in my presentation that we are bound to follow the policies which are defined by Indian Council of Medical Research, or the Department of Biotechnology has given their own guidelines, or Department of Science and Technology has their guidelines for the different research positions in a project. And now the one good thing which AIMS has recently done is they have come up with a book called the Research Compendium. It's a sort of a compilation of all the processes into one book. It's like a manual for research project management sort of thing, which comprises of both of like administrative, accounts, as well as the procurement component. So this is very good document which is recently launched on our institute day by our director AIMS. And if I talk about the manpower thing, which you're talking specifically about hiring people, we have a very structured policy in place in which there are clear-cut instructions about the position, the required qualifications, the age limit, experience, as well as the salary to be paid to the concerned employee. So, as such, there is no problem in hiring manpower, but the problem is with retention of the manpower, as Vandana said recently about giving an example of JRF and the research assistant. In my project also, we have struggled with two specific cadres, if I say. One is hiring doctors in the project, because if you see, for a post of a senior research officer in my project, the salary is somewhere around 65,000 plus. And the requirement, the essential eligibility criteria for that is a doctor with an MD degree with 2 years experience, or an MBBS doctor with 6 years experience. So if you compare the salary with somebody working in the private sector, it's like 1/4 of the amount which the person will get if he or she joins a research project. Now that becomes the challenge, because those who join the research project, being a qualified doctor having an MD degree or with a good number of experience, they use the project as a stopgap. By the time they are not getting something lucrative outside, they will work for the project, and the moment they get, they will leave. So it is actually a loss to the project, because we have to put a lot of sort of resources and time to train them as per the requirement of our project. And suddenly the person says, I'm giving 1 month notice, or I'm giving 1 month salary and I'm leaving. So that attrition is basically a major challenge for a research manager like me. The second cadre which I have struggled with is psychologists. So for a person who is having a MPhil degree in psychology, if you pay them like 35,000, 36,000 rupees, and then the person gets say 50,000 outside a research project, so they will not like to work in a research project. So psychologist is another cadre which I have struggled with. The third thing which I have struggled as far as manpower is concerned, the people are willing to work in the rural side, in a rural component, which is in the Balabgarh area, because mostly females, they don't feel secure going to a rural area and work there. And it's a very common problem across the Indian healthcare system that rural postings people generally don't like or don't prefer. So my experience as far as manpower hiring has been quite challenging, especially with these two cadres precisely, if I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. So we have a question about, can you please outline what are the essential components of setting up a research management office in a small institute? So I'd just like to take this conversation back to actually Joyita's slide, where she showed the different kinds of funding streams that are available at IIT Bombay, which need to be managed. And for the IRCC office to support the PIs with all of those kinds of different funding streams, there is a certain amount of knowledge that needs to be built up by the office. And I'm sure Vanda would agree with that from her experience at IISER Pune. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that building a research office is a long-term endeavor for any organization. And so that is one of the reasons why we have done the whole ERMI themed webinar series this year, because we've hoped that through these webinars, you've got some insights into the different facets of research management. And the first edition of the series was on research offices. So perhaps you could look through the webinars and consider what is it that your organization requires, and then structure an office accordingly. Because there's no sort of simple formula for doing this. It happens in a step-by-step manner, and it happens over time. We have a question about training. A certain level of understanding is required regarding financial rules for grant management. Could you suggest some opportunities for such training? Maybe some online yearly workshop or short course. So Vandana, I'm going to deflect this question to you. You've just done an exceptional workshop on the subject. So yeah, over to you, Vandana.
Yeah, thank you. So I agree with the participant who has raised this question, is where all the elements of a research, from planning to execution, budgeting, and all those things within our domain, we usually know. But a scientist, and particularly a beginner scientist, may not know what the institute norms are for that, and how the finance. So when one places an indent, and a faculty is told, you don't have budget under this head. So this is where people say that contingency could be an item which we could use for buying equipment. So then that is where whether a funder will allow it or not, which head it belongs to, whether an institute will allow it or not. So there was a clear lacuna in this field. That's why I really feel that training in the financial management of projects would be very, very useful. And what in terms of what the standards of accounting are, because a scientist could be an outsider for a accounts and administration office. So anybody who would like to venture into a career into grant administration needs to first understand what are the standards of accounting, what are the institute norms for accounting, because then only you can have a symphony of amending the policy or suggesting the policy. So me and my colleague here in IISER Pune, who is head of finance, is where we, along with in DST partnership, we did one financial management training for the participants, and shortly we will be announcing again. So stay tuned to our website if the participants are interested to take up that training. Thank you, Savita.
And I'd also like to add that Vandana will be running a training module, a training workshop on post-award management at the forthcoming ERMI conference next year. So stay tuned for that as well. Yeah. Kamal, we have a question for you. Are you involved in participant recruitment as well? And if yes, then did you undertake any special training for this? Lots of questions about training, I think.
Yeah, we are, as I told you, that our project is a community-based project in which we are recruiting people who are more than 50 years of age, apparently healthy people. In our project, we have been sanctioned a good number of positions of medical social workers. It's a specialized cadre, those who are trained in social work or in community-based, carrying out community-based data collection. So we put them on the job, and they are already trained people, though we give them training as per our project requirement, the questionnaires which we have formed, the how to take the consent and everything. So then the training component is very much there, but they are also qualified social workers to carry out data collection in the field. So if you see, the qualification plus training equips them with much required competency to go and work in the field. So I think that is very much required for any project which involves sort of community-based data collection, that they should hire the right people with the right qualification, and then they can be trained as per requirement of the project objectives. Thank you, Savita.
Thank you, Kamal. So, Vanna, we have a question on no-cost extensions. So, the question is that there are some agencies do not support such a process in specific grants, but then, of course, that is allowed in other grants. So, can you just share some insights on that?
Sure. So based on my experience, I'm not talking about Corona times, because in Corona times, whosoever whose grant was closing is whereby we have got extension. Even if the deadline had passed and we stated the reason, the funding agency was accommodated, they have given the extension. So let's talk about not exceptional things. So no cost extension in most of the funding agencies, even international, it is if you are a single PI, right, single investigator, then it is very much possible. Apply 6 months before your project ends, and with two set of documentation. One is your grant expenditure report, what is the balance, how one wants to use it. The other is what has been achieved in terms of technical progress, what remains to be achieved, how it will be achieved in the extended duration. I have seen everybody is accommodated. Now, there are projects in which if there are more investigators over there, one may require extension, one may not require request for extension. So that is where the complexity rises. And the solution is only that both has to apply together, because the grant is given to both, the duration is meant for both, right? So majority cases it goes forward to in terms of the grants which are obtained for research projects. The extension which is not awarded are in endowments, right? Endowments are given for a particular set of time period, because the company who has given that endowment has claimed tax deduction on it for that time period. If they have the liberty to give extension, they will give. If they do not have and they have claimed it for that, then there could be a problem. But in government grants, more or less is where I have seen it's not a difficult thing to get no cost extension, provided you apply in the time frame given by the funder.
On the other hand, I mean, this is very specific to the funder and the scheme, because different schemes have, you know, specific boundary conditions. So it may be possible that if it's a non-government grant, then those boundary conditions don't allow the agency to offer an extension. So all the more reason that the PI needs to be aware of all the terms and conditions of a grant and manage their funds and program accordingly. So I think we have time for just one last question from the audience, I'm afraid. So the question, Vandana, maybe you can take that. How different are managing funded programs when they're in collaboration with industry versus academia?
So how different, I would say, I mean, industry meetings are taken in a very timely manner. The progress evaluation takes place very timely. And I have seen the fund flow is very, very timely in terms of industries. Somehow this 3 every quarter, and the payments are also not yearly. Every quarter based on the progress reports is where it comes. So industry also knows and is usually considerate to 1 or 2 quarter, depending upon the end product, what they desire and when they desire and all those things, right? So that really matters a lot. So overall, I think it is in industry, it may be feasible. It may be feasible.
Thank you, Vandana. Last question for you, Kamal. We actually do have a lot of project managers who registered for the webinar today. What would your advice to the project managers be?
My advice would be that you should be ready to work 24/7 because many people will be expecting many things from you. And the major challenge in front of you would be to keep everybody happy. So you will be the nodal person or the central contact for everyone, and people will come to you with all their problems. Some problems you can sort out, some problems you can only listen, and some problems you would like to avoid. But most important trait or skill I would recommend is that you should be a good listener. You should be very patient, and you should be a little diplomatic to handle people, especially because rest of the things can be handled a little easily, I would say, like all your resources other than managing people, like whether they are in the institute or in my case they are in the community. So for a research manager, you should have good management skills. You should have good knowledge about the rules and regulations which your institute has drafted, or whether government has given some guidelines or the industry has some guidelines. Stick to the rules, but be a little diplomatic when you are handling people at all levels in the institute or in your university. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. And on that note, I'd like to really give a big round of applause to Vandana and Kamal, and of course, Joyita, who joined us for a while today. So all the audience, the listeners, you'll receive a feedback link at the end of the webinar. Please do complete that. We hope you've enjoyed listening to the ERMI webinars. And one of the themes that came up was that setting up a research office, setting up these research processes and building the knowledge for the institution does take time. And so it's important for institutions to take a longer term view of research management support. So after today, in November, we will have the last edition of the ERMI webinar series, which will be focused on this very point about the longer term sustainability of research offices. So do join us for that. And if I could have the next slide, please. I just had one other announcement from ERMI. This is about the ERMI annual conference, which we are working towards in February next year. The deadline for abstracts to be submitted for the conference has now been extended to 31st October. So if you've got an idea and if you'd like to present it at the conference, this is your opportunity. Please do put in abstracts. We'd love to hear from you. And you can always reach out to the ERMI team through our mailboxes. There's ermi@indiaalliance.org. And for the conference, that's ermiac@indiaalliance.org. So thank you very much for listening in. And also thanks a lot to Kamal and Vandana. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Savita. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Vandana. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.